from a certain ward. It's called Dinner Talk. Her mouth tasted like gin, much more than the tonic, but this was reasonable given the state of the union. I mean, by this point, I couldn't even get a decent cup of coffee, let alone find a lime. She now bought the cheapest booze available, and I didn't care. After all, it was an affordable ticket to a tolerable world made beautiful by prescription glasses of alcohol. Everything is totally natural, she assured me often on nights like this. The vertigo would come when I could not tell whose vision represented reality, and the word itself would turn into a kind of camera. She tried not to look at the stump. People always explode in wars, I informed her. I'll make you another drink. When she moved past me, I grabbed her waist, pulling her close. I moved one hand down to her delicate ass, feeling for it through the hoops of her dress. She wanted to know about my dreams. I told her of the fires burning outside the warping windows. She closed her eyes and said something derogatory about space, about the United States. I told her my opinion of time. It dictates the bills we pay. Well, that's that. And then I'm going to read a short story that might be done in that process. And this is called Years. He has not seen her in a long time. Years. After finishing college, she found a job on the East Coast. He also moved away, but went abroad, where he lived and worked in Shanghai. 2 years later, he came back to California, like he knew he eventually would. Now they are in a bar, and she is very successful, whereas he is simply getting by. It is late, and the bar is full. Their old mutual friends have just left to go to the next place. He had argued with them to stay put, feeling entirely too drunk, and waited to his chair. She had told him that she would not mind hanging around for another drink, as she liked this bar. The funky wallpaper, the 70s chandeliers, the tiny candles on every table. A song from the late 90s, Back That Ass Up, is currently playing from the speakers that are hung above the shelves of alcohol in the bar. A few people are rubbing up against each other on a small dance floor. Their heads are down, but their drinks are held aloft. There are tiny waves in their glasses. The ice cubes are moving around. He looks directly at his old friend and quotes the song. Bro, you look good when you back that ass up. After a few seconds of silence, both of them trying to maintain neutral expressions, they burst into laughter. She covers her face with her hands and hides for a moment while shaking her head. He is at the point in the night when he is glad that the music in the bar is loud. He does not want to talk much, is happy to simply be in his friend's presence and listen to this song. In his mind, he conjures the music video that accompanied Back That Ass Up. In particular, the parts that featured a variety of women who were able to spread their legs, lean forward with their hands on their knees, and jiggle their butts rapidly in front of the camera. He had been in high school when the video came out, and he remembers that when he first saw the movement of the women's butts, he inadvertently thought, a perpetual motion machine. A sexy perpetual motion machine. Oh boy, you look drunk, she says, now smiling at him. Her face is cradled in one hand, her elbow is propped up on the table. He takes a final sip from his drink. He grins and then grits his teeth. He does not feel old because of his ancient memories attached to this song, or because of how he now experiences feelings of exhaustion while drinking, his body often skipping over that period of elation he once could rely on. No, he feels old because he would like to be in a forest right now. This bar is not computing. He currently has no idea how to make someone fall in love with him in this environment. It is a 3-hour drive to Big Sur, and then a short 2-mile hike off Highway 1 that leads to a gurgling creek where a single campsite sits under a collection of redwoods. In the winter, the rushing water comes down the mountain so cold and so clear that the stones in the riverbed seem transparent and totally without friction. The full moon reflected in the water resembles another stone, white and shivering. In the bar, he is now leaning to the side a bit, caught between the place in his mind and the reality of the dark room, He wants to leave. He wants to take his friend sitting across from him. He thinks that he is beginning to feel less tired. He hopes that there will be no cell phone reception at the campsite of Big Sur. No music either. He decides very deliberately that he wants to exist in the present completely. Thinking of the spot in the woods, he begins to feel like an animal. I am an animal, he says, but she doesn't hear him. Her latest haircut is making everything she does seem more mysterious than it really is, and he is completely fine with this illusion. She glances at her drink, and a swoop of black hair descends like a velvet curtain, brushes across her face, covers an eye, and changes the mood of the entire bar. Nodding her head to the music, she has energy. She is moving closer to the candle on the table, disrupting the air and making the small flame wobble. He wants to get closer to the candle too. They look at each other, now only inches away, and he thinks the light is beautiful, hard to capture. America is such a horny country, he also thinks. He asks if she wants to leave, and she responds, so they stand up, and for a few seconds they move to the music together. The song has changed. This is faster. She turns away from him and places her body against his. She was always a good dancer. He leans down to kiss the back of her head. A vague but pleasant tropical smell. He is following her towards the door. She reaches a hand back to guide him, then he takes it and squeezes it. He closes his eyes and has confidence in her ability to navigate the room. He is trying to remain focused on the present, but it is difficult with an old friend. He is more attracted to her than he ever used to be, and so he wonders if she is perhaps less attracted to him than before, if there is some kind of inversion of their past feelings. He wants to know, is it possible that the concept of money is causing this? In her rented car, she asks where to go. He directs her towards the freeway, the 880, waving his hand in the general direction. Out of habit, he checks his phone, but absorbs nothing. He admonishes himself and hides the phone in the glove box. They don't talk much, but keep driving further south, waiting for the 101, quietly passing billboards and graffiti. Before he realizes it, he's thinking back to when he lived in China. On Saturday nights, he would usually go out dancing and get very drunk. On Sunday afternoons, he would always walk to the Shanghai Public Library and find something to read from the small but decently curated selection of books in English. He was not allowed to check books out in the library, but he did not mind. He always found a quiet table to sit and read at. In a corner of the library atrium was a tiny cafe that made delicious and cheap cappuccinos. He always bought one, and sometimes two, sipping the drink slowly under the big windows by the cafe. One day, slightly hungover, but very caffeinated, he read a translation of the Tao Te Ching. And if desires should then assert themselves, we shall humble them with stark no-naming. He walked home very content that afternoon, silently repeating this phrase in his head, while the warm sun filtered through the cold winter air. Eventually and finally, they reach Highway 1. There is the road and there is the coast. A very complete darkness unfolds below the city of Carmel. The highway follows the edge of the continent. To the right, the ocean is moving a beach around. To the left, there is a hillside covered with grass, and it is swaying, an entire hillside. Suddenly, and for a few moments, he is in love with his life. That line from the Tao is still in his mind, but it cannot be properly understood. He turns up the heat and lowers his window. Outside, the sound of the road and the sound of the sea, water and gravel rolling, come together loudly. At a turnout overlooking the ocean, they park and sit in the car in the dark. "Where to now?" she asks. "I think we may have passed the road we needed," he tells her while looking around. "It's nice that we can randomly do this. It's been like 6 years. God damn." He leans towards her and she kisses him first, quickly, then retreats. "Want to move in together?" he asks, scratching his head. "Why?" She stretches the word out and turns her face sideways, looking up at him like she is playing around. "I just feel tired," he says and laughs. He is only half joking. He reclines his seat but keeps looking at her. It is not going to work unless we get to that campsite, he thinks. You know, I could actually see us living together, but not right now. I'm kind of dating someone. That's okay. She climbs over to his seat and lays with him. They are face to face. He places a palm on the edge of her shirt where her skin is showing, just above her hips. Who knows? I mean, if it doesn't work out with this guy, she says. And as she burrows into him, he moves his hand against her back. They lay there for a long time, never do make it into the woods. He is mostly in the present, but a little in the past. He feels like this old picture he once found online of the Great Sphinx of Giza, a fantastic creature buried up to his neck in sand and still more blowing into his wide open eyes. Thank you.